Hey, parents, welcome back. Do you remember 2020? I mean, I know we don't want to go there and it's like this PTSD flashback, but I've just got to say that back in 2020, when I walked into the grocery store, I remember being in the produce section and just like having this overwhelming feeling of panic. Like, where is all the food? Why are the baskets empty? Why are there no cucumbers? Like, what is going on? There was this issue in the global supply chain where the shelves were empty. We couldn't get toilet paper. It was just awful. So I remember just thinking, if I had a garden right now, maybe this wouldn't hurt so bad. Maybe I wouldn't be so overwhelmed because I would know that at least I've got half of what our family needs in my backyard. And so I did, like lots of people did probably back in the day, and jumped on Amazon and like bought all the things. And one of the things I purchased was this little starter garden that plugged into the wall that we popped our little seed pods in and turned the light on. And all of a sudden, in a couple days and weeks, we had these little vegetable sprouts coming up. And I was so excited. And so that's when we decided, you know what, we should convert this sandbox that our kids don't use anymore, because our youngest was, I think, 7 at that time, into a garden. So my husband and our middle son, who just loves to do anything woodworking and engineering, went to town, kind of converting this old sandbox into a walk-in garden. So we put some chicken wire around it. We put a little gate on the front to keep the bunnies out and the squirrels away, and put in a drip system. And then we would transport our little plants from inside to outside. But let me just tell you, I still, after like 3 years of this thing going, I still feel like I'm totally winging it. And I know you feel a little intimidated about gardening and like sourdough starters and all of this stuff. Also, we all want the Pinterest or the Instagram garden, but we have no idea where to start and if we even have the energy to keep it going and actually produce some bounty. So this is exciting. Today on our show, I have a married mama of 6 who had her own journey and own story that really sprouted out from some news that she got from her physician about 2 of her children. And anyway, I'm just going to let her jump in and tell us a little bit about her family and her journey to gardening. So welcome to the show, Nicky Schauder.
Thank you so much, Jordan. I'm so excited to be here, and I'm so eager to help anybody out there who thinks they don't have what it takes or they're always struggling in the garden. I feel you. The struggle is real. Yes, we had to start again because when we moved from growing in a tiny townhouse where we lived for 15 years, we had grown it to a point, we had grown there for maybe 5 years. We had grown our produce to a point that we were supplying 25% of our fruits and vegetables from a tiny backyard, if you can imagine, a townhouse with a shady backyard and like a front yard that was heavily patrolled by the HOA. Like you could not grow pumpkins there. We tried.
Oh, yes.
And despite that, we were growing fruits and berries. We didn't have to go to the grocery for berries for 6 weeks, maybe for blackberries in particular. But we had strawberries, the largest Native American fruit called a pawpaw. Anybody knows what that is? It's really delicious. Yeah, leafy greens, lettuce, figs, you name it. We had a lot of stuff. Tomatoes, of course, not corn, but we had a lot of stuff. Yeah, growing in that backyard of ours. And then we had to move. And then this is our second year here. First year was okay. I was able, for the first time, to can 13 weeks worth of tomatoes. 13 weeks, yeah. Which
wow, you've got it down now.
Well,
okay.
I thought I did. And then this year, we could feel it. Like our grocery bill, we weren't feeling whatever inflation stuff was happening with the grocery bill. And then this year, the deer realized that we were growing. And they are jumping into our garden fence. We're like, how did it jump? And like, it got stuck and whatever. And they just, as they were stuck, they just annihilated a lot. We still grew something earlier in the spring, but this summer has been, we feel it so much. So my husband would be like, every day he has to write down the wins because there's so many losses. It'll be like $400 worth of groceries like in his head.
Yes, that's what we are doing on a regular basis because we don't even have our gardens going, Nikki. So tell us first why you even decided to start growing your own garden when you lived in a townhome. What was happening in your family dynamics?
Exactly. So pre-pandemic even, we had our first child and she was diagnosed with failure to thrive. And it felt like she was 18 pounds for the longest time, 18 months. So like every time we'd weigh her 18 pounds again. And you know how you weigh in the early stages and you have your firstborn. So all your focus is on getting it right. I didn't know how to cook. And my husband was teaching me and he was like, he had a little bit of a junior gardener green thumb. So we were starting to grow stuff, but then we were told I couldn't breastfeed her because she had severe allergies to, okay, here we go. Peanuts, tree nuts, like all the tree nuts at that point, even coconut, which isn't a nut, but it's a coconut, it was included. Beef, pork, chicken, and the egg of the chicken, and gluten. And so what can you feed a child? You know, even at 6 months, it was breaking out. You'll see, I have some of the pictures on our website, maybe, but I also have them in a book that's coming out. And it's just like, I was trying to research all the pictures. It was like, oh my gosh, poor babies. So we'd end up and the paramedics would come because they would accidentally eat something. It happened again with our second child, but different allergies, fish. And he still has allergies, peanuts as well, certain nuts and legumes, watermelon, tomatoes. So those are minor allergies, but he has a lot more. And so until this day, we actually just had an allergy scare 2 days ago. The eldest one came to our bed because she actually got hungry, ate our peanut noodles from a date my husband and I had, and she was in our bed and I had to EpiPen her.
Shoot. So you've got 6 kids. They've got all kinds of different allergies. It's not like you have one. Okay, just the 2 have the allergies out of the 6. Okay.
That was when we're like, okay, there's something wrong with the food system. We got to change the way we are eating. So first it started with growing organic, not all at once, just the milk and the eggs first, little by little. And then we were noticing the grocery bill was going up just, for that time compared to now, not as much, but it was still a big deal to us. So we said, well, why don't we grow some of it? And we started to grow and we failed. We were planning and put all these things out and we got a few tomatoes and my basil plant died. I didn't understand why until my husband and I, when there were bookstores then 17 years ago or 15 years ago, we were on a bookstore date and we stumbled upon this book with the word permaculture in it. Okay. And it was about a homesteading family in England. And we thought, well, what does this permaculture word mean? It seems to be able to have helped this family grow their own food. And so we looked it up, and not only does it do that, like help you grow your own food in an ecologically responsible way without the pesticides, which we believe were, we had this feeling like it might be the pesticides that's causing this rise in peanut allergies in children. And of course, all we have is anecdotal evidence of the 4 other children not having allergies after we made that switch to organic and after we started growing our food. That's all we had, but we have this gut feeling that maybe that's what it is, right? So we started researching. What we found out about permaculture was not only did it help you grow your own food in a ecologically responsible way, it also has helped green the deserts in China. Because part of China was desertified because of overgrazing. It's called the lowest plateau. And they had a whole documentary where they used techniques to not graze the animals and turn a desert into a forest in about 3 years. And it was used to green the deserts of Jordan, very specifically, like intentionally planting the things and creating ways to capture any water. That's a place that has only 4 inches of rain every year.
Every year.
Yes. We in the Northeast have 41 inches of rain. So the Northeast part of America is wet. The half part of America on the West Coast is very dry. And so more and more permaculture becomes more relevant as we're trying to renew the face of the earth in that way, just reestablish again the balance in the ecosystem so that you can be able to support your life with the food, the medicine, the clothing that you want to, and also getting that gift of supernatural, like the peace and slowing down and appreciating the rhythms that are in place in nature. So
I love that. So what started as kind of, we have to do something different because we have 2 kids with failure to thrive and just off the chart food allergies, really blossomed into this whole, okay, we're going to go organic. We're going to grow our own food and see if this makes a difference for these 2 children. But then you continued having children. You had 4 more children and fed them food from your garden and organic stuff that you bought at the store. And it's been night and day, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And also knowing that they are not kids who are as picky, as many of maybe their friends are, because they grew up planting these things. They grew up planting kale. So of course they're going to eat kale or peas or whatever it is that's, sometimes not usual to eat and they're willing to try things that are unusual because we do grow things that look weird or and yet taste in a different way, and so it's healthy in that sense, even just new.
Yes.
Yeah. What else? But so many things. Like my husband had minor. Now let's say once a month he'd get some sort of a food poisoning by eating out in the restaurant, and his gut, I could tell, like I didn't understand it then, but he would always like throw up. And after we made that switch, I mean, now he's so healthy. He's so healthy. He's getting there and he's running more. It's a journey.
It is a journey.
And he's getting better and better. And I'm sure this is, I say that because in 2 weeks we're going to get our blood drawn. And I'm like, I know it, Dave. I know it's going to be, he's been eating really healthier these past this summer, actually.
Well, this is evidence. Okay, you're married, you have 6 kids, you tend a garden, you have a business as a couple, you run this business now. This whole like art of starting your garden and feeding your family just to be healthier and to help your children thrive has grown into this business where you're making a living at helping others to garden and to start small and build up to what they could essentially feed their family with as well, right?
Yeah. So a number of people started approaching us and asking us, how did we do it? How do you grow your own food? And being a big family, we didn't have the time to go to everybody's backyards. We started out with consulting, but then, and my husband still has his job. He's a software programmer at a neuroscience company. So he's a software architect, a neuroscience research institute. And yet he still loves to garden. So how did this evolve as people started asking us more and more? And so we brought it online, and we first offered like a course called the Garden Game, where in our heads, we like having it fun. We always like presenting fun webinars. And this one, we had like a fun course where a gnome you would go step 1 and then step 2. Now you're seed starting. Now you're transplanting. And as software evolved, that changed as well. And simplicity. And as we wanted to do more things more simply, it's a course, and we have a membership, a small membership. But then we had, it's now our business has grown to also serve in the last few years since moving here, to serve local restaurants, microgreens. And so if you, dear audience, listener, are thinking, where am I supposed to start? Okay, fine, I do want to grow something. Where should I start? Whatever time of year you're listening to this, whether it's in the winter, start with growing microgreens. That is my
microgreens.
Yes. And I don't have any samples here because I'd have to run in the fridge, but These are these little tiny frou-frou things that the chefs put on top of your dinner plate. And so it's such a joy when you find a restaurant that has the same values as you in terms of we want healthy organic food. Microgreens are the most like powerhouse little garnishes that you put. Yes, they make it cute. Yes, they give you a little bit of a zing when you eat it and make the flavor even more complex. But the nutrition in a small microgreen seedling that's growing your seeds into like a seedling stage, and at 3 inches, you cut it and you put it on your pasta or your soup or your smoothie. That nutrition there is sometimes greater than the full grown version of it. So it's like 50% more vitamin C or 100% more whatnot. Different nutrient profiles, kale being the highest. And if you guys know anything about kale, like it's like anti-cancer, anti-diabetic, it's like panacea of all these things. Everybody, if you are into that health, you're listening to a lot of health podcasts or reading a lot of health material that have to do with what's the right food to prevent cancer or whatnot, then it's usually kale is the thing that comes up. So these leafy greens are really rich in these all these things that support your health. So I have a whole other webinar on that, and I don't have the stats with me now.
Yes. We believe you. You've been at this for a good amount of time.
Yes. So we use that. We use microgreens. So start with microgreens. You're done in about 10 days. You harvest them, and then you've grown your own food. And if you don't know where to buy the microgreens, go reach into your pantry. And if you go on our website, join our newsletter, eventually you'll get to some place where we ask you if you want to plant your pantry, and we show you just how to do it with what you can use already, because that's one of the things of permaculture is use what you have already. You don't go like have to invest in a whole setup, use what you have. And normally what you have is already in your kitchen. So if you have a couple of mung beans, or a jar of mung beans or kidney beans, and you want to start sprouting them, quinoa, start sprouting them. The greens from them will be healthy, but so as stir fries, cook, but so will those sprouted versions before you cook them. So it's a lot of fun, just doing experimenting in your kitchen.
Wonderful.
Oh my gosh, microgreens.
Okay.
We have a membership. And then the other thing is this year, we just launched a Kickstarter in the spring. And my husband is a software programmer, like I mentioned. And I'm so proud of him because just playing around with it in preparation for our webinar we're going to give in 2 days, and on how to plan your garden. And it's so much easier to do it with the software because we've had hard time like, okay, so how do I plan my garden? For those of you who are a little more advanced and you're okay, I'm going to plan my next season's garden. But I never get it right, or, I always miss the window, or I don't know how to plot it in a design. That's what that app does. Is permaculture. The heart of permaculture is really not so much in the gardening. That's one aspect of it. Permaculture is a design system to help you live a lifestyle that's connected with the animals around you, the people, of course, feeding yourself, the environment, your community even. And it is working with nature and not against it. So not using compost, going back. So what compost does is, instead of being a consumer of things and buying the fertilizer and buying the seeds all the time, we're still in the buying the seeds. This is a journey, like I said. So we're trying to move towards let's try to produce the food, and the food has a little bit of the seeds, then use those seeds, produce the food, and then the food waste goes back into the soil. So you have a cyclical way of growing, which is how nature, was meant to be. It's how God made creation. There is no waste. Everything is usable. And that alone, that's kind of like transformative of like, especially here in America, having traveled. I know you've traveled as well a lot. Everywhere. And me coming from the Philippines, which is a third world country, I have to remind myself and my kids constantly of that stark difference of how back home we're not as wasteful with anything, water, paper. notebooks, old notebooks, you tear out, okay, for school supplies, if you have a lot of extra paper on your composition notebook, you just tear out the parts that you cut out, the parts that you drew on, and then you use it again for the next school year. That's how we were growing up. Yeah.
Yes.
And so that kind of thinking, I'm like, yes, it will help keep me grounded and not live beyond my means. So
I love that. So you said permaculture really means this is a design system. Yes, there's gardening as part of it, but it's also like just self-sustaining. So you grow something, you use the seed from that, you eat the food from it, and then you compost what's left over that you don't actually consume, put it back into the soil, and it's this whole system.
Yes. And that's how it pertains to gardening. If it pertains to like architecture, for instance, and you were building your own house and you wanted it to be a house that really made sense with nature and didn't produce so much waste and use so much chemicals, like an eco house or healthy house, then you would situate the house in such a way, for instance, where the sun would go into the windows during the winter time. The sun would be lower in the sky. So it's a lot about observation. It really is based on observation. And then during the summer, the sun wouldn't quite be able to make it into your house. So there would be awning or shade put up, or you would design the house so that it was in such a way that wherever the position of sun was, you wouldn't get that heat battered, onto whereas right now when builders build, it's all like the south facing usually gets all the sun and the wind. It's more about the look of the house rather than what is the context in which that house is put. Are there trees around, looking at the environment as well. So we're not, you can start in your garden. You start in permaculture, we call it zone 0, your home. And then zone 1 is your kitchen garden. Zone 2 is the chicken coop. Zone 3 is like the orchard. Zone 4 is the wilderness, the forest or whatnot. And so you kind of try to see, those are zones according to how frequent you go in and out of them. But you start first like with what you can control, like little tiny baby steps. And then you kind of move out, and little by little you start, and you use what you have. So if you already have a house, you don't destroy the house and then start again. You just kind of, work with what you have. So yeah, this
is so beautiful. Okay. This is way bigger than I imagined. I was thinking, okay, this is just about growing your food. No, permaculture is really this design system. Yes. So that you're not just clearing the land like we do in America and taking down all the trees and removing all the soil and the grass so that we can pile houses on top of one another. And then start growing these tiny little seedling trees in, 3 in the front of every yard, because that's what the HOA says. This permaculture is about like working with nature and using it to your fullest so that you're using less resources, right? And you yourself are becoming more connected with Mother Earth.
Oh, for sure. Once a year, I try to at least do a replay or give this webinar called Finding God in the Garden. And in it starts out just looking at the different patterns that we see in nature, because as I mentioned earlier, permaculture does begin with observation and seeing first, like how observing one part of garden specific. You can look at, for instance, knowing what plants grow well when, and how not to force plants when it's not their season. Except if you have a greenhouse, then you can you can do that. And it also it goes into talking about a human ecology, which so Pope Benedict spoke of a human ecology, an ecology of man, based on the fact that man too has a nature that he must respect and he cannot manipulate at will. So that when I think of that, I think about, okay, I don't I don't sleep as much as I should.
Sure.
I'm trying to stay up at night, and I'm trying to manipulate the way that my human nature needs my body needs that extra, amount of sleep, but I'm not listening to it, so I try to, and that can't be, because when that happens, then things fall apart in our body, right? If we don't eat right or we don't sleep right. And it's the same. It's the same in the environment. When we understand that about ourselves, like it starts with that, observing ourselves and then observing nature, we can accept how nature is a gift. And whereas, like here, Pope Benedict says, whereas thinking that we enjoy absolute power over our own bodies turns often subtly into thinking that, actually Pope Francis said it, into thinking that we enjoy absolute power over creation. And that, like you mentioned, like we can, just bulldoze forests and not think of how that affects the relationship to man, the relationship to, the earth and everything, the creation in it. So I think it's a powerful meditation to take on the hobby of gardening, whether or not you are successful.
Yes, this is true. I'm so glad you said that, because so much is gained in the process of observing, planting, trying something new, right? Trying to eat some of what you've grown.
Yes.
And then just the idea that bringing your kids into the fold is helping them so much to connect with where food comes from, what the process is like to grow it and get it to us.
It is. And then you get a greater appreciation of the gift that is food, the gift that is a tree and the shade that it provides, instead of, you compare that to like a McDonald's meal. The food is for me, it's so many things. It's like, there's a reason that in our Catholic faith, like it's the Eucharist, like it's so sacred. It's like the culmination. And you compare that to like how, because the wheat is grown, how much the process is, the water comes, so much has gone into that. And then when you look at something that's just been manufactured, like a run of the mill and cooked, sloppily, I feel like what's that, burger compared to that experience of sitting down with a family in a meal setting where everyone has helped and where the food has come from. Okay, it doesn't have to all come from your garden, but it doesn't have to all come cooked from you. But there is something to be said about knowing where that food comes from and seeing its story. It's such a rich experience, such a rich life that I want to give to you all from growing food. It's not just about growing food. It really is about growing yourself and your soul and your humanity, and your children along with you. So I hope that although we do have abundant gardens, like we just live vicariously. I was telling you, Jordan, that the deer annihilated our stuff.
Yes.
But we live vicariously through the gardeners this year that we're helping, who are even growing in like desert areas, such as like Oklahoma. I think it really dry there. And they're bringing these watermelons that we've given them like via seeds. And our membership, we send seeds to. It's a very personal membership. You need a straw bale? Okay, we'll call it into your local. So it's pretty intense. Like we love our members. So they had melons that we're growing the same melons with them, that we can see the melons in their full, like what God had intended. They're full.
Right. You're going, the deer got ours, but I'm glad yours are safe. Yes. And so this community of gardeners that you're developing, they also have access to talk to each other in the community and share ideas.
And share ideas. And like if something is wrong, I had heat stroke we also have bees from learning. I was on a bee field, like learning about bees from our bee mentor. And I was in a full bee suit and the sun was just, and I was like, fainting. So I was telling them about what not to do in the garden this summer. And then somebody like gave me all the heat stroke, protocols and all that stuff. And like, they're so kind. They're just loving members. And that it's a great community of gardeners, because you can see the successes and you can see the struggles and you can find your own you can find yourself in the different journeys that they are experiencing. So I learned so much more from them.
This is what it's about, though, Nikki, right? Is a community, being part of a community of people who are wanting to do better for their families, to slow down just a little bit more, and in order to be intentional and really focus on what I call the critical few, right? Is our spiritual relationship, our relationship with our spouse, and our relationship with our family in that order. Right? Just being very intentional about saying no to all the things that kind of distract us from the ability to be able to observe something in nature, or to be able to simply grab something from our pantry, plant it, watch it sprout up, pick it off, throw it on our salad and be like, yes, we started, right?
Yes.
I mean, this is awesome that you have taken some news about your kids, this failure to thrive and this, oh no, they've got all these allergies, and then taken a really proactive part in their health to solve this issue, and inspired so many other parents that, you know what, you don't have to live afraid with kids that have allergies, but you can take an active role and start small in making some little changes to the food they eat so that they can be healthy and you can get a win on your side, right?
Absolutely. We're all about celebrating those wins. Celebrating those wins in the garden, in life. Yeah, at the end of the night, it's good to ask yourself what the wins are. So,
I love that. Right. Yes, and your husband, even with the deer chewing down all the good food, he's going, let me put it in writing. What was a win that we had? That's huge. Yes. That's really intentional about, like, I am not going to focus on what we don't have, right? That would be this deficit mindset and this mindset that comes from a lack of gratitude, if we're just frank about it, right?
Yeah, that's so true. And honestly, it's not to say you don't dismiss the fact that the deer keep, what can we do? So we have fencing that I had to haul today. That is where you in permaculture, you accept the feedback and then you apply it and see what things you can change to make the next iteration better. And that's an allegory for life and for creating software and so many things.
Yes, absolutely. Take the feedback from nature and figure out how you can make some adjustments so that it'll be better next time.
Yes.
Yes. So good. Well, what is the best way for people to engage you? Let's say you've never started a garden. You've been watching, you've been looking at things, you've been seeing all the things on Instagram and Pinterest, but you're just not even sure where to start. Where would a person engage you on your website, which is permaculturegardens.org? Where would a person begin with you guys?
Thanks. So permaculturegardens.org/blog. And you'll see a newsletter sign up would be the first place to go. You could also see it in the front page, just permaculturegardens.org. And from there on, you will have bi-weekly newsletters from me about tips on growing, seasonal tips that are growing, what you can do starting small from wherever you are. And the first question I ask you is, why are you growing your food? Why do you want to grow your food? And what's your biggest struggle? And from there, we can take a conversation and we'll see where it goes.
I love that. It's personal. It's not just a one size fits all. You get this blast email and that's it. You're saying, I will engage you in a conversation via email and we'll figure out what your why is. Yeah. That's so important, right? You don't want to just throw something up because a neighbor's veggies look really good and you're keeping up with the Joneses, but it's like, no, I have a reason here. You've either inspired me, I have my own food allergies, or I just want to cut down on the grocery bill, but whatever their why is, then you can kind of take them from that position and help them get a quick win, I would guess, right off the start to get them going and get them inspired in growing their own food.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, yes. And Jordan, we have taken inspiration from you, our family has, with this concept of, and if you are listening to Jordan's podcast, you have to find this podcast link down below, of the family meeting. And that is where I just implemented it, a few weeks ago, maybe the beginning of summer. And it's been amazing. I'm like, how did we ever run this show with no family meeting? We definitely did it with a lot of Post-its on the wall. But this has helped us so much. We do have a calendar, but it's so much more. So with a rah-rah at the end, go Team
Yes.
Shauder. That's, I definitely recommend that. So any garden project in our course, that's part of it, is also a part of how would you tackle if you did want to put on a full-on garden and just you did the microgreens, you want to do more. How do you incorporate that in family living? And Jordan's podcast on family meeting and our membership with that on how to plan a garden project would be your way to go. So
good. Nikki, I know when I started emailing you about being on the podcast, you said, we are going to implement this family huddle, this little family meeting concept right away. So it's so great to hear back from you that this has been successful. It has probably eliminated some stickies and chaos from your family calendar and get everybody on the same page on a weekly basis for updates about the garden, for how we can grow in character, right? As a family and all pitching in together.
All the way to the mission statement and the book we're reading. It's so unifying. So I totally recommend that. And, as you embark on whatever project it is, whether it's cleaning out the tool shed or or just living life, starting the new school year.
Yes.
Totally need that family huddle.
Yes. Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. And I think, we would be wise to go to your website and click around. You guys look at the beautiful pictures of her family and their garden, and you'll understand even more deeply what this family is all about. I love the idea of permaculture, period. This is awesome. It's just getting us back to the roots of how we were created and how we were meant to use this earth. So you don't have to be, scared of being a hippie or being some, tree hugger or something. It's okay to live in the world.
Yes.
But also not do everything the world does. So it sounds like, Nikki, your organization, Permaculture Gardens, supports kind of going against the grain, but going with nature. So thank you for everything you shared with us here today, getting us inspired. My favorite takeaway is that you don't have to plant in March or April. You can garden all year round, even inside your home. So that's what makes this episode unique, is that no matter when you're listening, Nikki's got it all figured out for you to just start wherever you are, whatever time of year it is in your home.
Yes. So such a pleasure being here and talking about this. I'm so happy you invited me, Jordan.
Yes, this was just a pleasure. Guys, check her out at permaculturegardens.org. You can also email permaculturegardens@gmail.com. Watch out, Nikki. I think your inbox is going to start blowing up. This is great. And guys, take a little bit of Nikki's advice. If you are struggling with chaos in your home and the calendar is just causing so much overwhelm because there's so much going on and you're the only one feeling like you know what's going on and people are all coming to you. It's kind of this concept of feeling like a team of one. Jump on our website. We've got a free downloadable. You just put in your email right on our homepage and we will ship you that little printable instantly on how to get a family huddle started in your home today. We also have our Thriving Family Accelerator, where you can go, okay, Jordan, I don't have time to go through all this on my own and DIY it. Just coach me through the process. We do this in a small group with 4 to 5 couples in each group, and it has been amazing. People are helping each other outside of the group and finding common bonds, and this community is just becoming so active and so engaged. So be sure to check out all of our resources at familiesofcharacter.com as well. And we'll catch you on another episode of our show real soon. Thanks so much.